If you're a Stranger Things fan, then you definitely remember Mr. Clark's whole acrobat in the flea thing, right? It's honestly one of the best science lessons ever put on TV. And that's exactly where we're going to start today. We're going to peel back all that amazing fiction and dig into the real, honest-to-goodness, mind-blowing science that's hiding right under Hawkins, Indiana. So Mr. Clark lays out this super simple explanation for the kids, right? But what's so cool is that it's actually our ticket to understanding some of the most complex, out there theories in physics today. Seriously, this isn't just some made-up plot point. It's a genuinely brilliant way to break down ideas that real physicists are wrestling with as we speak.
All right, so let's break this down. What is the acrobat and the flea really all about? Well, to get a handle on the upside down, first, we've got to understand the tightrope. Okay, so in the world of physics, that tightrope is what you'd call a manifold. Now, for the acrobat, that's us, by the way, the rope is just a line. It's one-dimensional. You can go forward, you can go backward, that's it. But for the flea, or, the Demogorgon, that rope has a whole other dimension it can play with. It can go around the side, underneath, the whole shebang.
And that is the key to everything. The top of the rope, that's our world. The bottom, that's the upside down. They're basically two sides of the same coin, just on a hidden dimension. And here's where it gets really wild. The idea of another world right next to ours, separated by a dimension we can't even see, that's not just something they made up for the show. In fact, that idea is the basis for a huge theory about how our entire universe works. And trust me, this is where things get, stranger. So let me introduce you to something called brane cosmology. The theory goes like this. Our entire universe, everything we can see and touch in 3D, exists on this giant flat sheet, kind of like a membrane, and scientists call this a brane. But this brane isn't alone. It's floating in this massive higher dimensional space they call the bulk. A good way to picture it is to think of our reality as just a single sheet of paper in a gigantic, maybe even infinite stack. So you see the parallel, right? This theory basically says there could be other universes, other branes floating right alongside ours, maybe just millimeters away in another dimension. And scientists are actually using this idea to try and solve some of the biggest mysteries out there. Like, why is gravity so weirdly weak compared to other forces? Well, maybe it's because gravity is the only thing that can leak off our brain and into the bulk. And that brings us back to the show. What if that's how the Demogorgon finds its victims? By sensing their gravity leaking from our world into the upside down. It's an incredible, spooky thought. Okay, so we've been talking big, like cosmic scale big. Now let's zoom way, way in, down to biology. Because the upside down isn't just another dimension, is it? It's alive. It thinks. It's one giant organism. And believe it or not, science has something to say about that too. Right, so how does this work? How does the entire upside down, from the mind flayer to the Demo dogs, all act as one single terrifying mind? You might think that's pure fiction, but the answer might actually be right under your feet, literally. Here on Earth, we've got something called mycelial networks. Think of them as these massive underground webs made of fungus that link up pretty much everything in a forest. They call it the Wood Wide Web, and it's not just for sending food around. Trees use it to send out warning signals about predators or disease. They share resources. Huge mother trees can even find and feed their own baby trees through this network. It's a gigantic living communication system, a hive mind that's very, very real. And this idea is so powerful, it's not even new. Check this out. Even Sigmund Freud, like 100 years ago, used this exact metaphor. He said our unconscious mind is like a mycelium network, this huge, hidden, tangled web, and our thoughts are just the mushrooms that pop up from it. It's just the perfect way to describe these unseen connections, both in the world around us and deep inside our own heads. Okay, but let's be real. We can't talk about the science of Stranger Things without talking about the one, the only 11. And her powers? Well, they might seem like pure fantasy, but the inspiration behind them is rooted in some seriously controversial and very real government experiments. So yeah, Hawkins Lab isn't a real place you can visit. But the creepy experiments that went on inside? Those were inspired by actual top-secret government programs that absolutely did happen. You've got stuff like Project MKUltra starting in the 50s, where the CIA was literally experimenting with mind control. And then in the 70s, you have Project Stargate, which was all about researching psychic abilities, things like seeing things from far away, or, you guessed it, moving objects with your mind, psychokinesis. These weren't just stories, these were real programs, and you can see how they totally set the stage for a character like Eleven. Okay, so we know the government tried to study this stuff, but let's get down to the brass tacks. Is moving things with your mind even possible? Like, from a physics standpoint, could your brain actually reach out and affect the physical world?
All right, now hang with me, because this is purely theoretical. But here's a plausible-ish way it could work. Think about it. Your brain is already an electrical powerhouse. Every single thought you have is basically a tiny electrical storm. So what if a mind was so powerful that it could project the electromagnetic field from those thoughts outside the body? Kind of like a biological radio tower. If that field was strong enough and focused enough, it could, theoretically, push and pull on other objects. But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive biological price to pay. To generate a field that strong, you'd need to burn an insane amount of energy. We're talking a colossal number of calories, all in a split second. And that would put an unbelievable strain on your body. And what does that sound like? The nosebleeds, the exhaustion, the fact that Eleven is always starving after she uses her powers. It's the perfect scientific reason. It's not magic, it's just biology being pushed way, way past its breaking point.
So when you step back and look at it all, it's just amazing, isn't it? You start to see how the show's creators wove all these threads of real science into their story. I mean, think about it. The Upside Down, that's basically brain cosmology made terrifying. The hive mind, that's a twisted version of the wood wide web that connects our own forests. And Eleven's powers, they're inspired by actual psychic experiments and have a logic that's grounded in theoretical physics and biology. They didn't just pull this stuff out of nowhere. They looked at the very edge of what we know about our universe and asked that amazing question, what if?
And it really makes you think, doesn't it? The greatest science fiction stories, they don't just invent things. They take a look at our own world and show us how strange and wonderful it already is. Makes you wonder, what other amazing science is hiding in plain sight in the shows and movies you love?
Hey, if you had fun geeking out on this with me, do us a favor and subscribe to Brainstorm. We do deep dives like this all the time. Thanks so much for watching.